When I was in high school, my football coach used this term called Palmer Pride. And at the end of practice, he'd be like, let's bring it in, 1, 2, 3, Palmer Pride. Or before games, he'd ask each of us, like, do you have Palmer Pride tonight? Do you have Palmer Pride tonight? Where's your Palmer Pride? I remember legitimately having this small tension in my heart because in church, growing up at youth group, my parents reminded me that pride was this dangerous word. And if I had pride in my heart, there was something that I needed to figure out, and there's something I needed to correct. And here my coach is talking about Palmer Pride. It took me years to realize that there's very innocent ways that we use pride, and there's some very dangerous ways that pride can influence our lives. And when your parents look at you and say like, hey, I'm proud of you, or when your teachers say like, hey, I'm proud of you, or you're like telling your teammates on your soccer team, I'm proud of this team, that's good, that's okay. That's like saying, I'm glad that my role as a player, as a soccer player, is connected specifically to this team. Your parents are saying, I'm glad that my role as dad is connected to who you are as a kid. That's good pride. Bad pride, dangerous pride, that's what we're talking about tonight, and that's the focus of the final story that Jesus tells this audience in one sitting. And I don't think it's a coincidence that Jesus packages these 4 stories to tell this group of people, this audience. On one side of the audience, we have the very worst people of society, the tax collectors, the sinners. And then on the other side of the audience, we have the very best people of society, the righteous people, the Pharisees, obeying all the laws, crushing it, doing everything right. And Jesus tells these 4 stories to them together. He talks about the 100 sheep and how the one sheep has a wandering heart. He talks about the 10 coins and how the 1 coin is hidden. He talks about the 2 brothers and how the younger brother has a reckless heart. And then he talks about the 1 brother and how the older brother has a prideful heart. It's almost like Jesus is saying, look, 1% of us, as we're trying to follow God and know God in our lives, 1 in 100 of us, 1% will have a tendency to wander in our hearts. 10%, 1 out of 10 of us will have a tendency to hide our hearts from God. 50%, 1 out of 2 of us will have a tendency to make reckless choices and be reckless in our hearts. And 100%, all of us, 1 out of 1 of us, at some point in our lives and multiple points in our lives will battle a prideful heart. All of us will. And Jesus ends with this story for that reason. Because pride hits us all. And so last week, Tim talked to us about the younger brother. And if you remember, the story goes that Jesus tells, he says, a father had 2 sons, and the younger brother is super reckless and demands his part of the inheritance from the father. But what about the older brother? He had 2 sons, and the older brother, meanwhile, is chilling at home, doing the right thing, and yet by the end of the story, we realize that that dude is just as lost as his younger brother. But Tim helped us see that the younger brother runs off, spends all of his money. He ends up in a different country with nothing in a pigsty. And he has this amazing moment where he realizes, wait, I have been living a lie. I thought life was found in what I could get from my dad, my inheritance. And now I literally have nothing. And I realize that life is actually found in relationship with my dad and just being with him. That's where life is. And so the younger brother returns home, and while he's still a long ways off, his dad runs out to him. And I'm reminding you of this because while the dad runs out to the younger brother on his way home, the older brother, meanwhile, doesn't see any of that. He's in the field, preparing the crops, stewarding the land, getting things ready for his dad. And he doesn't see the amazing reunion that the younger brother has with his dad. And the younger brother says, Dad, look, I'm not deserving of your love. Can I just be a servant? And the dad restores his son, puts a ring on him, and they go into the house and party. The older brother sees none of that. In fact, the only thing he sees is he finishes the day and he walks up to the house, and I just imagine like this bumping party. Cam, he's not going to do it. And so the older brother looks around, he sees a servant, and he asks like, what in the world is going on at our house? We've never had a party like that. Oh yeah, your younger brother's back. He's safe, he's sound, life is good. And the older brother's like, no. Yeah, they killed the fattened calf. It's party of the century.
I am dead inside.
And this is the first glimpse or the first moment where we see a glimpse into what's going on in the older brother's heart. Because if his heart was in a good spot, he would have been stoked. He would have been like, no, you're talking about my younger brother? He's back? I thought he was dead. You're saying he's alive? And my dad did the unthinkable again. He restored him as a son and put the ring back on. And we finally get to eat that cow? Like, this is legit. Let's do this thing. And he'd run in and join the party, but he doesn't. In fact, he becomes angry and he refuses to go into the party. The first time in his life that he's separated himself physically from his dad and said, nope, I can't even be connected to you right now. And so his dad, being the amazing man that he is, just like the shepherd went after that one wandering sheep, and just like the woman found that one hidden coin, and just like his dad went after his younger brother earlier, his dad goes out to him. And he tries to entreat him. He tries to help him see the love and the grace of the situation. And he looks at his son and he's like, look, man, like, don't you see that your younger brother, he's had a change of heart. He's realized where life is. It's in being here. But the older brother wants nothing to do with it. And I can't even imagine the audacity to say this to his dad. This is worse than the younger brother saying, Dad, give me mine half of the inheritance. The older brother thinks he's crushed it. He says, Dad, I have slaved away for you for years. I've never once disobeyed you, and yet you haven't even gotten me a little lamb, a little goat, much less the fattened calf. And yet this son of yours, don't call him my brother, the son of yours returns and you give him the fattened calf, you give him this steak dinner, and I don't even get a chicken nugget. No, I want nothing to do with that. That's ridiculous. And his dad knows the contents of his son's heart. He knows the pride that he's dealing with. And his dad doesn't miss a beat. And he looks back at his son and he goes, son, everything that I have is yours. And you have been with me always. Yet this brother of yours, yes, he's your brother. This brother of yours was lost and now is found. He was dead and now he's alive. And so of course we had to celebrate. Of course, we had to get the fattened calf. And it's almost like he's saying, and do you know why? Do you know why you haven't gotten the fattened calf, much less a chicken nugget? Because you've been missing the whole point this entire time. You've been right at home. You've been with me always, and yet you have been lost in plain sight. You've been right here at home, and yet your heart was light years away. It would never have made sense to give you the fattened calf because your heart is still so lost. You have not been found yet. You have tried to earn your inheritance from me when you know that I give it to you because you are my son, not because you earn it. And do you see the house behind us? Yeah, that's yours. Do you see the fields around you? They're yours. Everything I have is yours. And yet, you think you had to earn that from me. And then the story just ends. Jesus is telling it to the audience, and that's it. He doesn't tell us how the older brother responds. We have no idea. It's a tough ending. And yet, I like to imagine that the older brother responds to his dad, and the scales of his heart fall off, and he's realized how lost he's been. And he says, Dad, I'm so sorry. I have sinned. I have messed up before you and before all of this, before heaven. Will you forgive me? I've been at home this whole time, and yet I was just as lost as my younger brother. He was super reckless and demanded for his inheritance, and I tried to be super good and earn my inheritance. I was just is lost. He thought that life was found in what he could get from you, and I thought that life was found in what I could get from you. And I'm sorry. And I realized that I could never earn the inheritance you have for me. You give it because you're a good dad and I'm your son, and I'm not worthy of it. I'm not deserving of it. Will you forgive me, Dad? Do we have 2 fattened calves? Because I think you have 2 brothers returning home tonight, 2 hearts that were lost and are now found. Can I just be a servant in your household? But we don't know. Most of me thinks that the story just ends there because the brother never responded. The brother was so overwhelmed and consumed with the pride in his heart that it invisibly blocked him off from his dad. He did not realize that this pride was separating him from really knowing his dad, and he turned around and left, and he never went into that party. The pride in his heart won out. And I also think that Jesus ends the story right here because this cliffhanger is a bridge to our own hearts. As I was preparing this talk, some of the contents of my heart were exposed, and I began to see this invisible pride creeping up. And as I was preparing this talk right now, I realized in my heart, I was unknowingly, I was invisibly making a deal with God. I was like, God, if I work really hard on preparing this talk, then you owe me a great product, a great talk to share with students, and then I'll look good in front of everybody because that's what I think I need. It's a win-win. And I realized, wait, I'm trying to get something from God by preparing this talk. I'm missing the whole point. I am believing this lie. I'm thinking that with my performance, I can get what I think I need from God. And I had to say sorry, and I had to totally change how I prepared and figured out this whole talk. And I realized, wait, God, you have to be at the center of me preparing this talk because you are where life is. Life is found in relationship with you, and so you have to be right there at the center. And so I can't prepare a talk without you because you are my joy. And that's it. End of story. So what about you? What about your heart? If you try to see the unseen in your heart, to uncover some of the invisible pride that can well up, that can creep up now or one day in the future, where is your heart trying to make a deal with God? Where are you trying to say, God, if I perform in this way, then I deserve this gift from you that I think I need? Maybe it's with being a kid and your parents, and you're trying to earn your love from your parents. You're trying to earn something from your parents. Maybe it has something to do with a boyfriend or with a girlfriend. You think you have to act a certain way or perform a certain way, and then you'll earn this certain affection from another person. Maybe it's with sports. Maybe it's with college. Where in your heart are you trying to say, if I perform well enough, then I'll get the reward I think I deserve? And the older brother reminds us in this story that God is not after our performance. The older brother does everything right, and yet he's just as lost as the younger brother. God doesn't want us doing the right things. God wants our hearts. And when He really has our hearts, and we realize that life is found in relationship with Him, then of course, we can't help but want to obey. We can't help but want to stay at home with our dad and do the right thing, just like the older brother did, but do it for the right reason, to be with our Father. So my hope for us tonight is that this might be a reminder, this might be a talk that we put into our heart's pocket for one day when the pride creeps up and wants to seal us off, wants to separate us from really knowing God. And we could say, nope, I'm not believing that lie. I could not perform perfectly enough to earn what I think I need from God because He's already giving me everything. And I am with Him always, and that's where life is, that's where joy is. I once was lost.